Mahalo for coming out for day 4 of the first annual Wailuku Film Festival, as the mayor put it. First annual, which implies county will be putting this on for the next 50. Now we're going for eternity. We are setting the pace here. Mahalo for joining us. I'm Kathy Collins. I just have a couple of housekeeping announcements. In the trailer, you heard me say, please silence your cell phones now. That's not enough. Put them away. Turn them off, put them away. Absolutely no photos or video or recording, audio recording of any kind during this session. Please, we ask for your cooperation there. We have one more full day of screening here in Wailuku Town at the historic Iao Theater and here in the beautiful Naylor Theater. You can still get tickets for those screenings at the box office on Market Street right next to Y Bar. You can still go online and use your phone for that after this session, wailukufilm.com. And for tomorrow's Best of Fest at the Maui Arts and Cultural Center, screenings at 3 and 6 p.m. we are showing the Best of Fest. Both films that sold out earlier in the week will be shown. So, Lahaina Rising is on at 3 p.m. in Castle Theater, and Jack Johnson's Surf Film Music at 6 p.m. in Castle. You can get your tickets at our film festival box office, or you can go online to mauiarts.org and get your tickets that way. Either way, we hope to see you at the MAC, which is still technically in Wailuku, tomorrow for the Best of Fest. All right, I think I've taken care of all of the housekeeping that we need. Again, I cannot stress this enough. No photos or recording of any kind allowed. This is being broadcast live on Akakū and on their YouTube channel as well, so please be aware of that. Camera might hit on you as well. Right now, it is my pleasure to bring to the stage the gentlemen that you are here to see, and they're hanging back there. You can come on up and make your way, because this is not going to take very long. Here to conduct the conversation, we have one of the jurors for the Wailuku Film Festival and the founder of the Hawaiʻi Film Critics Society, Mr. Barry Wurst. He will be conducting the conversation. And I understand he is like, next to this guy, he knows everything about the Marvel Universe. Is that right? So I am going to let Barry do his formal introduction, but you all know this Maui boy that we're so, so proud of, and delighted that he could take time out of his incredibly busy schedule to join us today, Destin Daniel Cretton. Mahalo to both of you for being here.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Destin.
Good morning.
This is a trip. The first time I got to talk to you was over the phone. I was living in Colorado at the time, and we did a phoner for the Maui Time Weekly for short-term 12. And then during COVID, I got to talk to you about Shang-Chi over Zoom. So this is really cool. We're in the same place. It's like, I'm digging this. So
I'm also digging this.
Thank you, sir. Well, let's start. This is a panel about directing, and I guess the proper way to start is to talk about being a little boy making movies in your backyard. What do you recommend for all the dreamers out there, all the filmmakers with their cameras, with their films, with their buddies, making movies? What would you tell them at a young age? Like, hey, I want to do that. I want to be a part of this. What would you tell those young artists?
Whether you want to direct movies or paint or get into photography or write stories, you really learn the most by just doing it in repetition. I was very lucky at a young age that my grandma bought a VHS camcorder at that time, and she took us on our first trip off island to California where at that time it was just the 5 siblings, because my youngest, Marilee, was too young to go on this trip. But we went to Disneyland, and we went to Universal Studios, and it was my first time seeing that movies were made by people, and big teams of people. And we saw behind the scenes of how some of these movies were made. And I just so happened to have a VHS camera that my grandma let me use to document this trip. And by the end of that trip, I was just addicted. I was addicted to the process of doing it. So I never gave the camera back. And when we got home, me and my siblings in Haʻikū, we just started making movies. And that became our just our really obsessive hobby that we did. And throughout my whole life growing up here on Maui, I was just constantly looking for any excuse to get behind a camera and do it. And so I guess my advice would be, now more than ever, you have the tools to be able to practice this craft in repetition. And every time you do it, and show it at a place like this, or show it on Akakū, or put it on YouTube, and get a response from whatever you put together, you grow a little bit, you learn a little bit, and then the next time you do it, you'll be a little better.
In 2009, you had your short film, Short Term 12, took it to Sundance, and in 2013, it became a major motion picture. What do you recommend for filmmakers who say, I have a short film, I can see this being 90 minutes, 120 minutes? What would you say to them? They want to take the acorn and make it the oak tree, so to speak.
Just know this, nothing in my life or career has come easy. So when I did my first short film, my first real short film, and submitted it to festivals, I submitted it to Sundance among a whole bunch of other festivals, and I got rejected from Sundance for that first short film. I did that again. My second short film went to a bunch of festivals, got rejected from Sundance. Third film, also rejected from Sundance. It was my 8th short film that was Short Term 12 that got accepted into Sundance. And I thought, oh my gosh, I hit the jackpot. That film ended up winning the jury prize at Sundance that year. And I thought, this is going to be easy now. I should be able to get a movie made off of that. And that just wasn't the case. Everything is a stepping stone to the next thing, but if you take your foot off the gas, it will stall. And so for me, the thing is and it's not really something that I would say I cultivated. It was a fire that I guess was captured from the moment that I had that first video camera in my hand. There was just something that was, I was so obsessed about doing this that nothing could stop me from doing it. But I'm not, I want to be clear that I'm not this type of, I don't have this personality that feels outrageously confident and feels like I can do anything and I can take over the world. I've never really had that in me. I actually never thought that I would be doing this for a living. It wasn't even a part of a dream. I didn't think it was even remotely possible to dream about doing this for a living. But I did know that I loved doing this thing enough to just keep doing it. And so even when I won the jury prize with that short film, and then it was followed up by a lot of rejections for my feature script. My feature script was rejected by many labs, many things that I was trying to submit it to where I thought, oh, maybe this script is not meant to be made. But I was just so obsessed with doing that, I just kept trying and submitting, reworking it, trying to make it better. And eventually, you know, that same script that got rejected by everything over the course of 2 years ended up winning the Nickel Fellowship, which is like the Academy Awards gives out this Nickel Fellowship every year. When that happened, I thought, oh, good, it's going to be easy. And it's not. I thought, oh, maybe I can make this movie now. That was Short Term 12. The script got the Nickel Fellowship. The exact same script that got rejected from, like, you know, 3 or 4 other film labs throughout the year. I still couldn't get money to make that into a feature film. And for a year, we were trying to get the funding, and it just kept falling through. Nobody wanted to take a chance on me directing a feature. So I just cobbled together the money that I had saved and asked my roommate to help me produce this movie, and we convinced his uncle to put in a little bit of money, and we had about 60 grand that we collectively saved up, and we did our own feature film, and that ended up going to Sundance, and then I thought, oh, maybe it'll be easy now. The truth is it wasn't, but doing that first feature film then allowed me to finally get the funding to do Short Term 12, and that, you know, that was the first time that I actually got my first tiny paycheck doing all of this whole journey to pay the bills. Everything that I'm telling you, that whole journey cost me money. So it's just an expensive hobby this whole time. So I was shooting wedding videos. I was doing editing gigs on the side. I was working at a place like Short Term 12. I was teaching at a high school with Brad Kester. We're teaching at a film production high school. So I was doing other things to help pay the bills while I was just kind of exploring this very expensive hobby.
You started with intimate character dramas, and you've moved into obviously a bigger sandbox. How do you maintain common focus on a film set, or is it just the illusion of common focus?
On a film set?
Yes.
How do I create the illusion of being
Not
in
necessarily
control?
the illusion. Maybe you're just common focused.
It is kind of an illusion. I do think a lot of it is, I think, stems from growing up on this island. I think this island conditions you in some ways to move at a certain pace, which for a long time I thought that, you know, the way that I talk is quite slow. The way that I move, even the way that I think, is like a slower pace, I found when I went to the mainland. And I thought that was going to be a hindrance to an industry that moves extremely fast. And when you're on set, you do have to move extremely fast. But what I found is that having a bit of thoughtfulness behind every move that you make actually can make a day go much smoother on a film set. And I've actually found that growing up at the pace of an island in the middle of the Pacific actually is one of the things that gives me a superpower on set. When everybody is getting frantic, my brain doesn't really get frantic. So I have found over time that the things that I thought were weaknesses are actually the things that made me quite good at my job.
There are reoccurring themes in your movies, and it's just so interesting that, as you said, you had some stops and starts. There were things that came and went. There were projects that weren't going to happen and did happen. And yet, I see recurring themes. I see characters finding themselves and their families. I see characters surviving their pasts. And I see characters redefining who they are, who they were, and who they're going to be. Is this intentional?
I mean, everything is intentional, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's pre-planned from the get-go. I'm not thinking, oh, I want every movie in my career to be virtually about the same thing. But it kind of is. I've found that when I start a project, I'm searching for the thing in that story that I personally connect to. And I get really, really stressed out until I find that. And because it feels like a waste of time to me otherwise, to do even like to do a giant blockbuster movie, it can take anywhere between 2, sometimes close to 3 years. And it's a little morbid, but I've always asked myself, like, if I died in the middle of this process, would it be worth it to me? And to me, what that means is there something in this material that is enriching to me to explore? Is there something in it that will, I don't know, like over the process, hopefully make me a better person? And so I look at exploring stories, which is something that we do talk about to our students. And like when I was teaching high school, and now with the Hisako Film Lab, it's something that I like. When you can use stories as therapy, then the outcome doesn't matter, whether the movie or story or painting, whether it connects with other people, it doesn't really matter if it blows up on YouTube or takes you around the world at festivals or gets you your next job. All of that doesn't matter if what you're doing is personal enough that it can be as fulfilling as writing in a diary or processing something with a friend or a therapist or whatever. And I've found that in every one of my projects, I can see what I was struggling with at that time, and what I was thinking about, what I was processing through, and I can kind of see that I am trying to learn lessons through the journeys of the characters in those movies.
I want to ask you about Hisako Film Lab. Obviously, with the name means in relation to your grandmother, and also Hisako Productions, what you had in mind with that.
Yeah, it's the Hisako Film Lab, which we have. Do we have any students here today? Any? Yeah, stand up real quick. Stand up. Yay. Thank you so much. This is like it really is one of the things in my life that I am most proud of, is this lab, which you know, I have to say first that an idea is one thing, but the implementation of that idea is a whole other thing. The idea, and I'll talk about the idea first, which was when I grew up on Maui, I found this weird hobby, making movies, and I was just desperate for a community to do that with. And I was able to kind of find it with places like Akakū and my group of friends, but I've always wanted to provide a hub for other young filmmakers and storytellers to be able to get together and learn this craft. And this is the truth. It's not to prepare them for Hollywood. It's not in the hopes that they will go on and become great directors or get into the industry. They can if they want to, but to me, it's It's about getting together and learning life skills over the context of making a movie. There really is, there's very few experiences like it, where you can literally know nothing at the beginning. You can come up with an idea, you pitch that idea to a group of people, you collectively write a script, you get another group together, and you shoot this idea, you edit it, you put the music in, and then you sit in a room like this, and you put your idea up on the screen, and you see people connect to it. That process, for me, was exhilarating. It forced me to grow, not just as a filmmaker, but as a person, every time I did it, even on a small scale. When I would do it with, when I was a kid, it was the same process that we did when we were making movies with my sister Joy in Haʻikū. We get an idea, we shoot it, and then we screen it for an audience of my mom and my dad. and they clap and they go, woo, and it's the same process that I do on a Marvel movie. And what I've found is that process in itself can be a really growing, sometimes healing experience. I've found that one of the most powerful experiences that I've had as a filmmaker is seeing something that I put into a movie that was extremely personal to me, whether it's emotional or an inside joke that maybe just me and my siblings think is funny, and then playing that, sitting in the back of a room, in a room full of strangers, and feeling them connect with those moments. To me, is the power of this medium, but really the power of community, is the moment that you realize that something that's so personal to you is shared by so many other people. It makes me really emotional just thinking about it. And so that's what I hope we are providing for these young filmmakers who are, they're amazing storytellers and amazing filmmakers. And growing up on this island, there's like, I always say that storytelling is ingrained in them from the moment they're born on this island. There's not many other places in the world where two cars can stop in the middle of the road in Haʻikū because the drivers know each other and want to talk story for a bit. That idea of talk story is something that is, it's really quite wonderful to have that be a part of your life from the time that you're a child. So these, we see very clearly that these kids have a really ingrained, unique ability to tell stories.
I want to ask you about two scenes from two different films you've done, because when I'm asked why you're one of my favorite contemporary filmmakers, these are the two scenes I always cite. There's a sequence in Just Mercy where Herbert, played by Rob Morgan, in a beautiful performance more people need to pay attention to. It's his day, he is a death row inmate, and it's the day of his execution. Herbert, I just watched the film last night, so I'm a little emotional about it. He walks down the corridor, the camera is with him. You also cut to Michael B. Jordan as his attorney, who is in the observation room. And then you cut to all the prisoners in the prison cell, and they're rattling their cells. And you have the Old Rugged Cross playing on the soundtrack. This scene destroys me every time I revisit it. And every time I watch it, I think, man, like in the wrong hands, this could have been the most embarrassing, and it's beautiful. It's as understated as everything else in the film. The performance is everything. The scene could have taken the whole movie out of whack. And for me, it's the scene that I always think to when I think about this movie and the message of compassion. So my question is, sorry for the long-winded buildup, Did you see it when you were on the set, or was it a matter of finding these things in the editing room?
That scene actually came out of an interview that I did with an inmate who was on death row at that time, and I had heard the story from Brian Stevenson about, you know, every time that one of their friends, because these guys on death row, they didn't really interact with each other, but they could talk to each other. So because they were all in one area, they could hear each other, and they'd have all kinds of conversations. It was quite lively. They're talking to each other through. So relationships were built and friendships were made. And every time one of theirs was taken off to be executed, there was a ritual of they would watch the clock, and when it was time, it was as the clock was going down, they would all start banging on their bars with whatever they had, anything that make a lot of noise. And I actually thought for a long time that it was out of protest. They were protesting the guards and the situation, and protesting death, you know, the idea of killing somebody, which I also thought was quite emotional. But when I was talking to this inmate, I said that, because you were trying to make a point that you guys don't like this, and he said, no, it had nothing to do with that. We were making as much noise so our friend can hear us and know that he's not alone at this time. And that, like, you know, it just like, that really hit me. And so that idea was what made that whole, to me, made that whole sequence, you know, different. The way that we shot it, I mean, it was a very, just think about when we shot it, it was extremely somber. It was a very somber day. Like when we were on set, it was very quiet. We were shooting in a place where they had executed many people. And we had somebody on set there who was a former executioner who had not, since then, he'd seen so many executions that he became an outspoken advocate for abolishing the death penalty. But he was there to help us just know the exact routine, and we had our actors kind of practice the routine over and over and over, so they had it down. But the one person who did not practice the routine was the actor playing Herbert. So when we finally shot that scene, it was the first time he experienced all of that, and it was a very, very somber experience.
The other scene I wanted to ask you about is my favorite moment. There's so many to choose from in Shang-Chi. Some of you have heard of that one, right? Yeah. I love the sequence where young Shang-Chi is remembering the moment where he sees just how dangerous his father is. It's ostensibly a mob hit, and the way you present it is in this wonder where we're looking at the action through a dirty mirror. I love it so much, and I think about all the awful memories in my life that feel like, it's like looking through a dirty mirror. Can you tell me, please, about the process of how you came upon the decision to shoot the scene that way?
One of the things, I mean, it's very practically speaking, one of the challenges of shooting an action movie is keeping the action feeling fresh. I get pretty bored in action movies typically, and so in Shang-Chi we were always trying to figure out, you know, how each action sequence can feel very different than the last, and you can kind of see if you go through, like, the bus fight sequence is very different from you know, the scaffolding fight on the side of the building. One is about heights, one is about speed and traffic, and when it came to that scene, we'd done so much fighting that we were like, how do we we're kind of sick of fighting. How do we just keep the camera with our main character? This is like a very traumatizing memory of a kid, and so how can we keep the camera with our kid the entire time? And it was also a big challenge to do that in a oneer, because if you look closely, there's certain stitch points that you have to do because Tony Leung had to enter the scene, and then there was a switch out with a stunt double, and then we had a big wire pull to crash a stunt person against the mirror to break the mirror. So there's it took a lot of mathematics, but it was really fun. But the real focus was to try to keep the camera so you watch the entire thing from the perspective of a child.
Here's some questions for the dreamers, the creatives, the filmmakers in the audience. When this scenario happens, what do you recommend? When an actor isn't giving you what you want, or in the worst case scenario, they're not connecting with the character, what do you recommend?
Here's the thing about directing, is like every day, there is no 2 days that are the same. All of the tricks that you might have for one actor, I don't want to say tricks, but the way you communicate to them would completely not work with a different actor. I actually wish that in film school I was taught more about how to talk to people, and more importantly, how to listen to people. There's a lot of stress on, shot design, story, 3-act structure, where to place the camera, lighting, all very important things. But I would say 90% of my job is really listening to actors and department heads, understanding what a problem is, and coming up with an answer, and not on my own, coming up with an answer with the person in front of me. So if an actor is not connecting with a scene, which happens a lot, or they're not connecting with the material, or they're not feeling the character, then I think the best thing you can do is sit down with the actor and listen, and just kind of feel out like what's not working for them, and then talk. You just talk through it like you would talk to anybody, and then you come up with a plan. And usually, if you just keep talking through it, eventually something bubbles up, and you get excited about it, and they get excited about it, and then you go and you shoot it, and hopefully that's a little better. But even if it's not, sometimes you have to kind of go off in a direction in order to rediscover the thing that you're trying to capture in the first place. There's no rules in directing, and I think the best actors, they really just need somebody who is there who is a very good listener, off camera and in front of the camera. I mean, when you say action and you're watching your actors, you are just practicing the art of focused listening and observation. And when an actor, because I typically don't like to give direction on the first take, typically even not on the second take. I like to see what an actor is doing instinctively, and then I can respond to that. It's more of and then it becomes a conversation. And I usually find that actors respond to that much better than if I just come out and say, I want you to do it just like this and like this.
One of my favorite quotes comes from John Huston. I have it right here. John Huston once said, "As far as directing the actors and the crew, I direct as little as possible, and I get from others as much as I possibly can." There you go.
It's great.
Have you ever had to adjust the ratings on any of your films? A little further so it gets an R, a little less so it's PG-13?
We just had to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I can give away, but there were, we just had, it was a couple little tweaks, but we just had to do a couple little tweaks to adjust in order to get the rating that we wanted. But I don't think I've had to do that in most cases because all of my movies, I mean, Short Term 12 was like a hard R because there were a lot of F words in it. And I think, I forget what the other ones were.
I think Glass Castles are.
Was it?
I might be wrong. It felt like an R to me.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Was Just Mercy an R?
Yes.
Dang.
Yes, it was. Yeah, you got some F-bombs in there.
Sorry, Mom. A lot of R-rated movies. I still have not done a PG movie, which was the only movies that we were allowed to watch when I was young.
But PG was a lot harder back then, though, when we were kids.
That's true.
So, you know.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, Inner Space would not be PG today.
That's true.
So.
Yeah. Even Short Circuit, I was like rewatching Short Circuit, the opening of Short Circuit with my kids, and I was like, I don't remember all these guns, and like, it was...
Yeah, there's an F-bomb in Big. That's PG.
That's crazy. Well, Big has other problems, but... I love that movie.
Me too. How do you feel about director's cuts, special editions, all of that? Would you ever go back and add or take away from a film that it is finished for you?
I don't think so.
Yep.
I just don't have time to go tweak. I feel so relieved when I finish a movie and so excited to move away from it. I don't think I'd want to go back and start tweaking it again.
And I think about, oh man, that diner scene was so good. It explained the whole third act, and you don't do that?
No, when I look back at my movie, because I love watching my own movies after I've been away from them for a few years. And when I see these movies, I don't see them as like, oh my gosh, I should have changed that. I shouldn't have done this. I see them as just a weird time capsule of where I was at a moment in my life. And yes, some things are kind of embarrassing, like, oh, that line is so cheesy, or what did, but I wouldn't change it. I think that's where I was at that time, and I think it's really, really cool to have these little time capsule bubbles of different sections of my life. Like if you ever watch I'm Not a Hipster, there are so many things in that make me so cringy, but I love it. I love that movie. That's a movie that, Brad Kessler was on set with me, and it really captures a time, the time of tank tops and skinny jeans that I was like really into at that time.
It's on Amazon. You could all watch it tonight. I'm a Hipster. Watch it. You'll enjoy it. What's your relationship like with composers? You work with Joel P. West 4 times. You have no less than Michael Giacchino on your current film. What is that like, that give and take? Is there much give and take? What's that like for you?
Yeah, music particularly, music is very important with my movies, and with the right composer, you get into a little bit of a dance back and forth with the music, because the edit, you can edit a movie without music, and the rhythm would be something. But once you start adding music in, it actually, you can edit around. Sometimes the music inspires the edit to be a little longer or shorter, and what I find with most of the movies that I make have there's certain scenes where I am, and for better or worse, trying to walk a very fine line between something that feels authentically emotional and I typically don't like to shy away from the emotion, because I do feel like life is quite emotional. So I don't like to shy away from these highly emotional scenes like some of the ones you talked about, but the danger is that with certain types of music or these scenes can easily dip into flamboyant melodrama, which then feels false and doesn't, that's typically not what I'm after. And what I usually find with music is that our first passes are often too big or too emotional or pushing too much, and that we usually have to pare it back till we find something that allows the audience to feel something without them feeling like the filmmakers are like bombarding you with it.
I wanted to ask you about your process of adaptation, and forgive me, I know this could be a kind of a long-winded thing to talk about, but there's so many writers among us today. For screenwriters, I was so struck by The Glass Castle because the Jeanette Wells book is so well regarded, and nevertheless, watching the film, it feels like a piece with your subsequent works. I see thematic ties. What I mean is that you made it personal, but you also adapted what was so strong about that book. How do you find that balance of making something like, okay, this is mine, I'm interpreting it, it's through my vision, but at the same time, you're also taking a story that didn't begin with you. Where do you find that balance?
I haven't, and I probably wouldn't, take on an adaptation of a project that I didn't feel personally connected to. So I do feel like I'm not, there's never, if I read The Glass Castle or Just Mercy and felt like, oh, this is pretty good, but my movie's gonna be amazing when I change a bunch of stuff, I probably wouldn't, I don't think that'd be a good start. And so I felt really personally connected to both of those projects off the get-go, where I felt like it was a gift to be able to explore them and figure out the puzzle of trying to adapt something onto a movie. What I've found is sort of at least for me, the trick of doing an adaptation into a movie is movies just don't have the space that a novel does. And so it's trying to give the audience a cinematic experience of the essence of that material. I think a direct adaptation of a novel is actually going to be a even further off adaptation on screen, because they're not really written that way. But I have, on both of those movies, I was able to work quite closely with the authors to make sure that the things that we're putting in the movie are still completely true to their book. And so in both cases, like there's always times where the narrative of the movie needs some shoe leather or transitions or something to take us from one place to another. And rather than just making those things up, which some people do, and I think that's okay, I would often use my source and talk to the authors about this section, and many times they have new stories that they didn't put into the book that are just as true to their story, that helps me fill in these gaps that weren't initially in the book. So I can still say wholeheartedly that these are stories that are based on true events and true stories, even though there are certain deviations from the book, but those deviations are still true to the author's intent.
Between Shang-Chi and your current film, which I promise we'll talk about, I could feel the Marvel fans chomping at the bit. We'll get there, I promise. I wanted to ask you about television. You've 2022, 2024, Tokyo Vice on HBO, and then American Born Chinese and Wonder Man on Disney+. They're wonderful shows that couldn't be more different from each other in ways, and yet, of course, there's these connective threads. The question is, the cliche is that with TV, the hours are different, but the passion and the importance is still there. People say yeah, the hours are more manageable, it's more of a 9-to-5 job. Is that still true, or do you find it's not that different from making a movie?
I found television to be really fun. I personally, for me, it's much less stressful. And I actually don't know, I've been trying to understand why that is, because the process is not different at all. But I think it has maybe something to do with this like child dream in me was always connected to movies. So my identity maybe is, and I don't think this is healthy, but my identity is maybe more wrapped up in movies, and so I put way more pressure on myself when it comes to making a movie. What I think is actually fascinating is I don't think that the outcome is better because I put that pressure on myself. It's just it might even be, I don't know. It doesn't change the outcome, and it was actually kind of enlightening to go through doing television and realize that I have the ability to just be more gracious to myself and light and have fun and explore and just try things and not worry about the outcome so much. And I'm still learning how to carry that into my movie making, because I think I'd have a much better time.
Considering your early work, as well as the final moments of Just Mercy, do you miss documentary filmmaking? You ever want to get back to that?
I do. I love documentary filmmaking. Yeah, I think that would be fun. I mean, I've got 4 kids, so it probably wouldn't pay the bills as much. But I do think that documentary filmmaking is, I think more and more the importance of it is coming back. You know, I think audiences are, and we see this in narrative filmmaking. Audiences are craving things that feel more real and tangible and human, and all of those things are obviously found in most documentaries. I love the process of documentary filmmaking because you don't get a take 2 or a take 3 on anything. So when you capture a moment, it really feels like you captured lightning in a bottle. You know, it feels so exhilarating. When I was shooting, the Drakmar or the early docs that I did, they were verite type documentaries where you're just following a character around, hoping something cool happens. And every time I would go and shoot, there would be so many moments throughout the day where I'm holding the camera, like trying not to shake with excitement because I just captured something that I knew I would be so great to go into the final film. But that same feeling is what I chase when I'm doing narrative filmmaking. And there is no greater rush than when two actors are in a scene and they kind of get lost in it, and maybe they go off script a little bit, or they just do something exciting and you capture it, and you know that it would be very hard to replicate. And those are the moments that I try to fill my movies with.
So many films that filmmakers make, they say, this is an extension of me. I'm in the film. I'm one of these characters. See if you can figure out which one. I've heard that a few times. The more direct question, and forgive me if this is too probing, you just jump over it if you don't like it. You ever want to make a movie about your life?
No.
Next question.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know.
Who would you want to play you?
Who would play me?
Yeah.
Don't know. It's not too probing, but I just don't have an answer for that.
No. That's fine. I think it's about time I ask you about Spider-Man, Brand New Day. Yeah. For the record, I'm not going to see your film on July 31st. I'm going on July 30th, Thursday, 12 o'clock in the Maui Mall Megaplex.
Ooh,
so
nice.
I'm seeing him, taking my 10-year-old little girl, Beatrice. She's so excited. My gosh, this is the question of balance I want to ask you. How much of the film is you? How much of the film is what's expected? And obviously there isn't a way to, to itemize it, but rather, how do you find a way to be personal in a film where the expectations are gigantic, but of course, we want to see your passion, we want to see what you have to bring to it. How do you find that balance in something like that?
I try not to tackle a movie any different than any other movie that I jump into. I didn't chase down this movie from the get-go, but when I took the initial meeting and met with our producers and with Tom Holland to hear what they wanted to do for this next movie, because my initial instinct was, should I be the person to do this movie? And when I heard what they wanted for the movie, then I started to think that, this could be a good fit. And what they wanted was exactly what you're talking about, is how do I find something that feels really personal and intimate, to go along with the obvious spectacle that we're going to be seeing. But also, how do we make the spectacle different than people have experienced with this character before? All of that was a really, really great challenge, and it was, then it's just about getting the right people together who have the right taste, who are going to be going after the same types of things that we want for this movie, to make something that, it's not going to disappoint in terms of like the grandiose spectacle of what you would want of a Spider-Man movie, but I also don't think it's going to be what you expect. I think even the action is really cool, but I don't think it's going to be exactly what you expect. And I think what was really wonderful and surprising for me on this movie was how much I personally connected with Peter Parker's journey and his character and the way that Tom played this character. I was so moved and continue to be, and I just like every other movie that I've done, this one still, it sits with me, and I feel like I have grown and learned through the process, and I think a lot of people will feel very, very moved by this movie.
Do you remember how you felt about the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man in 2002 as a young filmmaker checking out? Did you see it here, or?
2002, no,
yeah.
San Diego.
Do you remember what that experience was like, seeing that?
I do. It's one of the first movies that really felt like a full experience. It's really the I think Spider-Man movies capture this childlike playfulness that just brings you back to when you were a kid, like I love Spider-Man fans because they are so joyful and silly and free, and they, you have this character who is, quite childlike in the best way. So much of his mentality is wanting to just really wanting to be a good person and wanting to figure out like what the black and white of life is, and wanting to be a hero, but not quite knowing how to do that correctly. And he's fumbly and bumbly and makes tons of mistakes, and there is something so relatably childlike about that, coupled with a character who swings, you know, like it's just so childlike. Like, to swing is something that, you know, we all did as kids, and to have a hero that is his primary form of transportation and power is to do giant swings through a city. It really is. It's a real joy to be a part of, and that was one of the things that we were really focusing on this movie, is how to give an audience a real experiential feeling of what it would be like to swing at 200 miles per hour through the streets of New York. I think you will all be excited to know that we're doing quite a few things quite different, and it is a pretty exhilarating experience. But all to say, when you couple that, you know, that type of action with the emotionality of this character, and the fun humor of this character, and it really is a surprising. It's a surprising concoction of emotions that I have found to be one of the most fun experiences of my career working on this one.
Is the film finished? Is it locked, or are there still some last-minute things going on?
I shouldn't be here right now because it's not finished.
No, we love that you are here, Destin. Thank you, man. This is amazing. No,
it's yeah. The edit is locked, and you know but it's always a mad rush at the end. You know, we're trying to finish all the bells and whistles and tie everything together so it all looks wonderful for everybody.
You got a month.
Yeah. Tons of time.
I wanted to ask you if there's a different genre you've always wanted to try. There's a joke to be made about Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, if you ever want to make the movie out of that musical, because we know that works. I love that musical, to be honest. But in all seriousness, is there a genre, I mean, can we ever see, Destin Cretton, a horror film, a Western, a musical? Is there anything yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
I was never a big horror fan growing up, just because they were very scary for me. I got invited over to a birthday party at a friend in Haʻikū, and this is when I was maybe like 10, and they put on Poltergeist. Oh yeah, yeah. Which I watched in its entirety from behind the couch. So I heard it in its entirety. But all my friends were watching it, and I just snuck around to the back of the couch and put my back against it and just like sat there with my eyes closed because it was way too scary for me. I'm not sure if I would. Maybe I like horror now. I do, but I'm not sure if I would. But I leave everything open. I don't know what I'll do next.
Well, I see a lot of possibilities in your future. I just want to say how grateful we are that you're here today. Thank you for doing this, man. we have time for questions. So what I'm going to do, Phil Donahue style, if you raise up your hand, I'm going to run over to you like a maniac. We get about 10 minutes. So here we go.
Donahue, I love the reference.
Two questions. First one's really quick. How do you know Spider-Man swings at 200 miles an hour? Second one is, it's more likely we're going to shoot a $60,000 short-term 12 out here on the rocks than a Spider-Man. How do you recommend we approach that from a director and producing perspective, being ethical to our cast and crew, and then also being realistic in the production value?
Sorry, could you rephrase that second one again?
Yeah, I mean, I guess knowing that we have a limited budget and limited resources out here in Hawaii, and we're working with a lot of talent that isn't seasoned in the Hollywood sense, right?
Yeah.
How do we make sure, like you shot your film short-term 12 for $60,000, how do we maximize the value of our limited budgets here and our limited tools?
Sure. Question one, don't quote me on that. I just said a number. But I will say that the VFX artists, and they use a lot of physics. There's a lot of physics involved in making Spider-Man swing correctly. And it's really cool to see how they use all these gravity balls, and depending on how long the web is, and it's really cool. Science is the answer. Question number two. I don't look. I mean, honestly, like, I think that every movie becomes its own organism, and I promise you that the experience will be magical and you won't regret it. If you are focusing on making that experience something that is wholesome, and you're treating your people well, and you're getting, but you just don't know. I think all you can do is focus on getting the right people together, depending on the script, to capitalize on whatever talent you have in front of you with the money that you have and the time that you have. And that's part of the process, is like rolling the dice there. And for when I did my $60,000 movie, I wrote it around the talent that I knew I could get. So it's a quasi-musical. My main character is a singer-songwriter of I'm Not a Hipster, and I knew who I wanted to play that. And he was a friend of mine who I knew was a good dramatic actor, but then I saw him on Broadway, or I saw him in Chicago. He was in a musical there, and I heard him sing, and I was like, oh, he could play this. And then every location I knew that I could get for free or for very cheap, and so that's what I wrote into the script. I wrote it to shoot very cheaply, and I wrote it around the talent that I knew I could get. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Destin. First of all, thank you for being here, especially for the Hisako kids out there. I have two questions, but I want to start. Before you, Marvel was story, stop story, fight, back to story. We forgot flow is gone. What you brought is flow. Story, trigger the fight, story continues, and that's why versus boring to not boring with your film. So thank you for that. Talking about flow, especially as a film editor myself, how do you work with the editors? And if that evolved over the years from your beginning to now?
I love working with editors. I started out as an editor, so when I'm shooting, my brain is automatically kind of like thinking how I might want to edit something. And I don't really know. Like, I let my editors do their first pass because I want to see another perspective, and I try to keep an open mind to see if what they get from the footage is going to surprise me in a way that is unexpected. And then when I jump into it with them, we just start going through the footage, and I tell them what I was expecting, why I shot this wide shot, why we follow him into this room, and then we'll just start working the material together. Editing to me is where the movie comes alive. I think any of your favorite movies could have been your worst movie under a different, you could take that same footage and just pull out all the bad takes, and actors should also thank editors more when they win Academy Awards, because they're not giving like, a different editor could choose all their worst takes, and then we would never know if they were good in that movie. Because to me, the best actors are the ones who are just somehow just trusting that if they give a good take, that we're going to find it, and they're not worried about giving bad ones. So they'll just go and they'll just try a whole bunch of stuff until magic happens. But yeah, for me, editing, there's no magic recipe for editing. It's working material and not being afraid to revisit it and re-edit it, and you put it in front of an audience, and if they're confused by something, you fix it. If they think a scene is too long, you ask yourself, do you care? Do you want it to feel long? If not, then you fix it, and you just keep doing that until the movie finds itself.
Thank you. I always say actors should bring the editors their +1 to the awards.
I agree.
Question 2 for the Hisako Lab. Every time we do a screening, and at the end there's a Q&A, and I don't know if it's Brad or someone asked, what was the most challenging part? 90% answer, editing. What do you have to say to the Hisako kids?
Oh, the most challenging part? The most challenging part for me is always pre-production. It's always the part where my brain can spin out, and all the fears of failure and the insurmounting thing that's in front of me that just feels impossible. Like that portion of the journey is always the most difficult. There's also a weird thing that happens on every movie, which is it's at some point in post-production. It's usually when kind of the adrenaline has started to dissipate and you feel that it's getting to the end of the run. It's also a time where the brain can play tricks on me. And you can look at this thing that you've been looking at for years, and you're getting close to putting it out into the world, and suddenly everything looks terrible. Even though you've tested it and you know people are connecting with this part and this part and this part, suddenly there's like a moment where I'm watching the whole thing, and suddenly it all just feels really bad. And I've now been through the process enough to know that's just a part of my psychology, and that it happens on every movie at a certain point. And I can now just tell myself, just take a breath. This is your brain playing a game on you, and just sit and let the movie wash over you, and listen to the feedback from the audience, and just don't trust your instincts when you're feeling really in a funk, But it always comes back around, It's a fascinating process.
Thank you. Mahalo.
Hey, how's it going, Destin? My name is Ethan.
Hi, Ethan.
I'm truly inspired to hear that you're from Haʻikū. Like, when I hear Haʻikū, I think, wow, island boy, because I'm from Oahu, and it's just super inspiring to see a Haʻikū boy or even an islander make it out of the islands to go to film school, because I'm in film school as well in LA. And I want to ask you for your advice as I'm entering my senior year, graduating from film school from Loyola Marymount University. Like, how did you delegate where to go afterwards? Because you talked about finding a right team, building a right community to tell stories, but I'm still grappling between going back to the islands, watering this the I know with my talents and love for passion of storytelling versus chasing that money and, I guess, financial stability as a documentary filmmaker?
Well, the good thing is, if you're a documentary filmmaker, you're not going to be chasing a lot of money.
Yeah, I heard.
I'm kidding. But not really kidding. I do think if the choice is between chasing money or doing or anything else, I would probably chase the other thing. and because I think that the pursuit of money is always going to make you feel empty. I do think that sometimes money is a byproduct of pursuing something that you love or that you're passionate about, and I do have to be careful because I want to be clear, because like life is hard, the workplace is hard right now, and I'm not talking about, you don't have to do the thing that you love as your job to be fulfilled. I never expected to be doing this as my job, to be fulfilled. I was not chasing filmmaking or directing as my end-all job, or else I'm going to feel like a loser or whatever. You know, like I always had a backup plan. I was teaching, I was doing wedding videos, I actually never expected to make money doing what I really love. I would save up my money, and I was doing like a short film every summer was what I was trying to do. I'd get my friends together and I'd write, you know, it was my hobby. I'd write throughout the year, and then I'd get my friends together and we'd do a short film in the summer. But I do think that the practice of pursuing something you love, if you can do it responsibly, and you do have to make a living at some point. So if you have to do something else on the side to do that, there's really no shame in that. It's actually a very smart thing to do. Like, but if if you're passionate about surfing, I always use this analogy. Like, if you're passionate about surfing, and let's say you're pretty good at it, or even really good at it, the chances of you like making money and being a pro are still very slim, right? But you can go for it, and you can have another, whatever your other gig is to work, but you know, when you're done with work, you go surfing, and you surf as much as you can because you love it. If you don't get paid for surfing, are you going to stop surfing and feel like a loser? Hopefully not. You know, hopefully, whether you get paid for it or not, it can be something that is healthy for you, it enriches you, it's good for your brain, it's good for your body, you can do it for the rest of your life. I really think that writing and directing and creating and art can be the same for you, whether you're getting paid for it or not. You know, one of the cool things is that there's always a chance that you could get paid for it. But I wouldn't make that your primary pursuit. When I got out of college, I actually tried LA for one semester, and I just realized that it wasn't for me. So I went back to San Diego, which was, that was just a bit more comfortable for me. And LA was a bit overwhelming when I first moved there. And I went back to San Diego, and that's where I was just kind of, you know, doing odd jobs. And I mean, my jobs ranged from like, I was an inspector for like this insurance company where I had to go to, they gave me a beeper, I had a patient a beeper, and then I had to go look for serial numbers on jet skis, and he's like, and then I also was like would put up, I was in I'll put up projectors and screens like this at a hotel for a job. But all the while I was there, I was making short films. So I would say, if you were, I don't know, that it doesn't really matter. To me, it's wherever you think you can keep making stuff. If that's what you want to do, then move there and keep making stuff.
Well, we're nearing the end of the panel, and as most of you know, at the end of every great Marvel movie, there's something a little extra. I understand we have a little something extra to show.
Do we?
I'm told we do. And in order for that to happen, everyone needs to take all your phones away, put them away, turn them off. All recording devices need to end. Let's roll that magical footage.